Hi friends, it's time for another art project. I'm so excited today because we're starting a new unit on the elements of art. Since it's October now, I'm going to start a unit on the element of texture. We're just finishing up color and just finished that up last week. And now we're going to do texture, and texture is also one of my favorites. I think, you know what, I'm going to probably say everyone is my favorite every time because I love art so much. But I do love texture. It's one of my favorite elements. So first I'm going to start out by reading you this little book about texture. What is texture? First, before I even tell you what it is, if any of you know what texture is, I'm going to give you a minute to tell me. Okay, let's see if you're right. Texture is the way something looks and feels. We can feel texture when we touch something. We can also see the texture of something with our eyes. Rough, smooth, bumpy, and soft are all types of textures. A cotton ball has a soft texture. Sand has a rough texture. Sand feels rough when you touch it. Artists use texture. We can add textures to artworks in many ways. When we paint, we can use watercolor paints on shiny paper. The picture we make will look flat and smooth. This artist used watercolor paints to make this picture look flat and smooth. We can add thick layers of paint to a painting. We can put a lot of paint on a brush and make short lines. This can give the painting a bumpy texture. We can also use a sponge to paint. Painting with a sponge gives the picture a rough texture. This is one of my favorite paintings by Vincent van Gogh called Starry Night. He used really thick paint. Like his paint was thick like toothpaste. He squeezed it out of his tube and then he put it on the picture and made really all these swirly lines, and then when it dried it was bumpy. It had a bumpy texture. Sometimes artists paint pictures on canvas. Canvas is a kind of cloth. It can give the picture a rough texture. A long time ago, people painted pictures on paper made from plants. The paper gave the painting a rough texture. This is called papyrus, and it's a painting from ancient Egypt. So that's what they used to paint on. They made it out of plants, so it's kind of bumpy and rough. We can also use tiny tiles to make art. We can create a picture by placing different colored tiles in a pattern. Each tile is smooth, but together the tiles create a bumpy picture. This pattern was made by many small tiles. It's called a Byzantine mosaic. When you use lots of little things to create a picture, it's called a mosaic. There are many other ways we can add texture to artwork. To add texture to art made of clay, we can carve lines and shapes into the clay. So when the clay is wet and it's soft, you can carve all these designs in it and then it will harden up and the texture will be there. We can also glue objects to a picture to add texture. Yarn, cotton balls, dried pasta, and colored sand all add texture. Have you ever glued pasta onto one of your pictures? We can make a smooth piece of art look as if it has texture. We can do this by coloring over a rough material, such as a leaf or a coin. This is called a rubbing. This is a fun way to create texture. To make a rubbing, lay your paper over a rough material and rub a crayon over the page. Maybe some of you guys have tried this before, and we might be able to do this in a few weeks too. We can also add texture to our drawings too. We can use different kinds of lines, shapes, and colors to give our drawings texture. We can show soft texture of a lion's mane by drawing thin, curved lines close to each other. This artist used many thin lines to make this lion's mane look soft. So just how you draw something can make it appear to have texture. Many artists get ideas from things they see in nature. The next time you're outside, look at all the different textures you see. There is art all around you. So I decided that I'm going to go look for some texture in nature. I got my magnifying glass because I'm going to go I spy texture. Come on, come along with me. Let's go. Okay, friends, I'm ready to do my I spy texture. Got my little magnifying glass because I'm a spy. So the first thing I found was this bowl of fruit. And I just was looking at the texture of these apples. Look how smooth and shiny they are. And this banana, even though it's kind of smooth, it's not like an apple. It has kind of a slippery texture to it. I would say it's slippery. I'm gonna go outside and find some textures. Let's go. Let's see what we can find. Well, first of all, this welcome mat has lots of cool texture. Look at all these diamond shapes. It's rough. When I rub my hand on it, it's kind of scratchy and rough. All right, come on out. Then I was looking at this little welcome sign I have, and I noticed that these little marbles on here, these glass balls, they're very smooth and shiny. And this metal, it's also really pretty smooth. So there's kind of a smooth texture. But look at the bricks. They're bumpy. The bricks behind it are bumpy. Lots of texture there. All right, what else can we find? I'm looking at this plant right here. And if you touch these, they're very prickly and sharp. They kind of poke you. So they have a rough and prickly texture. I'm examining these chains on the swing. Where the paint is still on them, they're very smooth and slippery. But where the paint is worn off, they're rough and bumpy, like right there. What else can we find? I'm looking at the texture on this bike tire. It's really bumpy and rubbery and squishy. Check that out. That's some good texture right there. What else? Do you know what a trampoline mat feels like? Well, it's bumpy and a little bit rough, a little bit scratchy too. Then look at these springs. They're really bumpy. They're kind of smooth and bumpy. They have some great texture. Then this is one of my favorite things. This is a really, really, really old chair that's been in my yard for a long time. I'm checking out the textures on it. Bumpy, soft. This is soft, but it's also bumpy. This is rough because it's old and rusted metal. And then this plastic, it's smooth, but it's kind of sharp and crunchy and crispy and brittle. I'm gonna say the word brittle because that's what it is. When something breaks easily, it's brittle. Okay, and let's see, one more. Look at this tree. Now that is some awesome texture. Very bumpy ridges. I love it. I love the texture of bark on a tree. Okay, also, have you noticed that my dog Zoe's been following me around? She's very curious. Let's take a look at Zoe. I don't know what she's doing right there. This is Zoe, and I'm going to tell you about the texture. She is soft. She is so soft. Her fur is soft. And especially, my favorite part on her is her ears right here. They're super soft. I love my Zoe. All right, friends. Next time you're outside, even if it's out at recess today, you should look around you. Look out in nature and see what textures you can find. Also, while you're sitting in the classroom right now, I bet you can find some textures all around you. First of all, I want you to look at the bottom of your shoe. This is mine. Did you see it? The bottom of my shoe is bumpy. And then touch your desk or your table where you're sitting. See how that feels. I bet it's probably smooth. And one other thing you can try is to touch your chair that you're sitting on, because usually the chairs at school, they're kind of bumpy. So just check around your classroom. Maybe you want to touch the carpet too, because I bet the carpet is soft, but it might be a little bit scratchy. So you can find texture all around you in the world. All right, it's time for the project. We'll see you inside. Okay, friends, we just learned about textures and how we can discover lots of cool textures around us, all the textures in nature and even in the classroom. So today we're going to do a fun project with textures. So I just barely found this project on the internet, and I've never done it before, but I tried making it myself, and I think it's a pretty cool project. So we're going to start with the project that we're going to make today is like this tree with this is like maybe the tree at the sunset. and it's made out of torn paper, because torn paper has some really cool texture, and so does the background of this picture, because the background of this picture is made with oil pastels, which have a really cool texture. Okay, so to make this project, you're gonna need a piece of white cardstock for the background, and this black construction paper is kind of like frames your picture. And then I'm gonna give you just a half sheet of black paper just to tear up for all the little pieces that you'll need. So you can make it with, you can use oil pastels. You can choose these bright warm colors, kind of like a sunset if you want to, for the background, or you could choose cool colors, more like maybe a night scene. So I made this one with warm colors, but I'm gonna make this other one with cool colors. So I'll get busy doing that. Okay friends, so I've been working on this oil pastel background, and you can do it however you want, but I kind of did lines across, wavy lines, and then I added some details and some patterns to the lines. And you can also blend oil pastels with your finger or with a tissue. So if you want them to kind of smear together and look more smooth, you can do that. So that's why my fingers look like this. So we'll continue this in just a minute. See you guys. Okay friends, I got done coloring my background with oil pastels. So this takes a while if you want to really fill in the color and make it look really great, and you can add some details and some like designs and stuff on there. So one thing you can do with oil pastels is you can smooth them out and blend them, and one way you can do it with your finger, or you can do it with like a piece of tissue. That works too. So if you wanted to like make this look a little more smooth, you could just like smear it with some tissue. So there's a couple different ways you can make that. Kind of smooth it out more if you want to do that. Anyway, so I got that background done. So on this one, next thing I'm going to do is give you a piece of black paper, the smaller piece of black paper, and you just need to rip it. Like I just kind of rip it in some strip, like a strip like this. And then from this, you just rip off little pieces. Like I have a pile started right here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a pile of these. And then I'm going to start gluing them on here and making a tree out of them. Friends, I'm finished making my texture tree out of torn paper. You can make it any way you want. This is kind of more of a spooky Halloweenish kind of tree, and then this one's more kind of a whimsical, maybe like fairy tree. So you can choose what colors you want to use in the background and what kind of tree you want to make. Once you get your tree done, you can turn it over and put some glue on the back. So we're going to glue it to this black piece of paper so we have a really nice frame around it so it looks professional. I put some glue on here. Make sure you get the corners really good well. I'm gonna try to get it centered on this black piece as well as you can. You could it has a little bit of a border, so it just gives it a nice finished look. One thing I like to do to make sure it sticks really well is turn this over and then rub it on the back. So get that on there really well. Then you can write your name down here, and you can write it with a regular pencil. It should show up on here. So I'm going to put Mrs. S. Then you're done with your texture tree. Hope you have fun doing this project, and we'll do more texture next time. We'll see you.